Hello and welcome back to Green Money Momentum, where we talk about market movements, making money, and money momentum. I'm your host, Trevor, and we are here for yet another daily talk of stock. And it is Monday, June 9th, and we could see by the heat map that we had an overall green day. So a nice bullish day in the markets. To be exact, we had 57% in the gaining category. So a positive day in the markets, just like this positive headline here. And that is that the stock market, the S&P, and the NASDAQ gain on upbeat U.S.-China trade talks. So we do know today that Scott Bessent and other United States officials went to meet Chinese officials out in London, and this was to discuss the trade and the tariffs between the United States and China. And well, it looks like everything is going well because Trump did tell reporters at the White House that we are doing well with China, adding that China's not easy, and I'm only getting good reports. So some positive sentiment coming from the president. And then when we look at the economic calendar, not really too much going on today or tomorrow. We just had wholesale inventory numbers today, and then tomorrow we have the NFB optimism index. But what investors really need to look at is this Wednesday, because we're going to have a lot of numbers around inflation. So a lot of CPI numbers, but overall, I'm not too fearful about Wednesday, because even if the numbers do come in lower than expected or some bad news, I believe that the markets will shake it off, because since we started to see the recovery right after Liberation Day, the strength in this recovery has been very strong, shaking off some other bad news, such as the U.S. Downgrade when it comes to the credit rating, and some other news, especially with that most recent blow up with Trump and Elon. But overall, it does look like the recovery should continue. And with that being said, today I'm going to be talking about three stocks that I am very bullish on. Four stocks, actually. Three of them have to do with the defense sector. So we're going to get right into that. But before we do, I want to say, as always, this is not financial advice, and I always recommend doing your own due diligence before making any financial decisions. So the first stock we're going to visit here is Palantir. And Palantir has been soaring over the last 5 years. We could see that it is up 1,200%, and we are seeing some strength in Palantir. So we are right at 52-week highs in Palantir, and at all-time highs up to $131. So Palantir gaining a lot of momentum, and this is despite many calling for Palantir to go down because of the high price to earnings. So I know all about Palantir's crazy price to earnings, but despite that valuation being so high and having to pay such a premium for what the current earnings are, Palantir only continues to gain value, and that is because of all the value that they are adding to the United States government. So we know Palantir over the last couple quarters has been releasing massive quarters, their earnings continuing to increase with all the government contracts that they have obtained, and it looks like they could be obtaining even more contracts here in the future. We know that Palantir is working very closely alongside the government, and their CEO Alex Karp is at the White House. And so there is some hate around Palantir. Some don't like what Palantir is doing. Some are saying their technology is intrusive, spying on the people. But regardless of what you think there, when it comes to just purely fundamentals and where they are at currently, this company only continues to earn money, only continues to have better quarters when it comes to revenue, and they are right in the White House. So Alex Karp right alongside Donald Trump and the other United States government officials. And there is a lot of talk about this Golden Dome. And so Palantir being a front runner when it comes to possibly getting some big contracts around that deal, as well as other deals as well. So Palantir, definitely a stock that you don't want to fade, even if there's a lot of, even if there's a high price to earnings. I would not listen to any bears on this stock, because I have been in here since around the $30 range, and I have seen some massive gains from that spot. And I really wish I would have bought more, because this stock is only going to continue to gain in value, and their earnings will only continue to increase because they have had a lot of government contracts that are just showing up in the now term. So that's the first stock that we're going to talk about. The second one we're going to talk about is BigBearAI. And so some like to compare Big Bear to Palantir, because Big Bear also works alongside the government when it comes to their contracts, and they are a lot to do with AI and security. And so Big Bear currently sitting at $3.90. And when we look at the recent trend in Big Bear, it has had a battle getting past some levels of resistance, the highest most recently being around that 450 level. And so we have been in this overall upwards trend in the Big Bear. Recently, we have started to consolidate sideways, but something to think about with Big Bear is tomorrow, a lot of the lawsuits that have been going up against the Big Bear are upcoming to their deadline. So tomorrow is going to be the deadline on June 10th. And so this could be a possible big catalyst for the Big Bear. We do know that Big Bear did have quite the retraction from where they were at earlier in February. And this is why the lawsuits have came after Big Bear, saying that because of their filing that they did with the 10K and how there was some mistakes there, that you could sue Big Bear for your losses. But the deadline is finally coming due on that. And despite all that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, we could see that Big Bear investors have stayed strong, and we have seen momentum in the last 3 months. And in the recent term, those who have been really following alongside this stock, you know that we have been building up higher highs with higher lows as well. So it's going to be very exciting to see what happens in the Big Bear tomorrow. And that when we look at the short interest, we have a significantly high short interest at 21%. So why this is significant, if you don't know, with short interest, is a lot of shorts, a lot of bears are going against the Big Bear, saying that they think the Big Bear is going to drop from the current levels. Well, if momentum does shift and Big Bear does start to rip up, this puts a lot of pressure on the shorts, and they may need to cover, causing an even further squeeze and even more momentum towards the upside. We just saw this not long ago with one of our other favorite plays on this channel, D-Wave Quantum, QBTS. There was a very high short interest, and then the stock has mooned up about 200% from the lows that we were seeing. So the stock started to gain some momentum off some positive catalysts, and because of that, the stock continued to soar, and a lot of those shorts had to cover their position, causing an even higher rise up in QBTS. And talking about technology and defense, we then have this stock right here, Castellum, and Castellum just recently broke out of its sideways trend that it was in. So Castellum was riding right around the 90-cent to $1 range for quite a while, but in this last week, we have seen a big pop up. So this stock is up 21% in the last month, 25% for the last week, and we have started to gain this momentum with Castellum because of this big news here. So they have reduced their debt. They had a $12 million debt. They had some of that with convertible notes, but they have paid one off. So their debt going from 12 million down to 5 million. So a big payoff there, paying off $7 million. And the last time I talked about this stock was in February, and that was because of their big contract that they achieved. So a $100 million contract. So they are also using technology and working alongside the government. That was why I was bullish on this stock. But since I last talked about it in February, it has only gained more momentum, and we could see that this company is continuing to grow. So they did have organic revenue growth with their Q1 earnings. So they did have a positive Q1, and then this right here paying a lot of their debt off as well. So this is ideally what we want to see with Big Bear that will push Big Bear up even higher. Some big government contracts and paying off their debt. So Castellum doing that, and Castellum is just a slightly smaller company than Big Bear. So Big Bear is sitting at a market cap right around 1 billion. Castellum just right at around 101 million. And so this company still has a lot of opportunity for investors to join in early and have a lot of growth, because just on market cap alone, the higher the market cap goes, the more money it's going to need poured in to push the asset up higher. So being at just a 100 million market cap provides a lot of opportunity for some wealthy return on investment. And this company right here, still relatively cheap at just $1.27. And so with that being said, now we're going to hop into our last stock here, and that is going to be Robinhood stock. So of course, if you're going to invest into any of these plays, you're going to need a brokerage to do so. And with Robinhood, we've seen a lot of growth in the last year, so up 234%. And there was this disappointing news recently. Well, disappointing, I guess, depending on the way you look at it, because myself, I am very bullish over Robinhood over the long term, and I do feel that at some point they will join the S&P 500. But with the most recent recalibration of the S&P 500, as this reads, Robinhood was snubbed. So Robinhood, there was some talks about them joining alongside the S&P, being added to the index, but it did not happen with this round. But that's okay with me, because overall, I heavily believe in the fundamentals behind Robinhood. If you look at Robinhood, this stock is only going to continue to grow. This is by far the most popular brokerage among young people, so more investors joining into Robinhood every single year. And as the years go on, they're going to continue to be invested into Robinhood, increasing their customer base. And this company right here is a large market cap company, but there will be continued growth because they are at a net positive, so a positive earnings per share, a positive PE ratio, and overall, when we look at their revenue over time, only continuing to grow. So most recently, they had their biggest quarter ever, quarter 4 of 2024, with a $1 billion quarter. So a massive accomplishment for Robinhood. And with Robinhood, they have also made some big deals recently. They did acquire Bitstamp, so their crypto services are increasing. We do know there is sports gambling with Robinhood, and overall, this company only continuing to earn in value. And just the other day, I just made a comparison video on Robinhood versus SoFi, and I talked about the fundamentals, and something that's very, very, very positive about Robinhood, and even got me to FOMO and buy even more stock, was that Robinhood does have a big buyback program. So a lot of the times in the stock market, we do talk about dilution and how dilution could hurt our plays and opportunities. Well, Robinhood is doing the opposite. They are committed to buying back $1 billion worth of stock. They so far have bought 300 million, 700 more million to buy in Robinhood. So Robinhood has an outstanding float of 800 shares available for purchase right now, 882 million, and Robinhood looking to purchase back more. So myself, I am very bullish on Robinhood, as well as all these companies that are working alongside defense using technology. But I would be curious to hear what everyone else's opinions are. So please drop a comment in the section below on if you're invested into any of these plays. Please leave a like and please subscribe to the channel. As always, I thank you for being here for yet another daily talk of stock, and I'll see you in the next one.